I did not dream of arrest, only of paper burning where no fire was. The flames were neat, obedient, the way numbers behave when a careful hand aligns them. The ash curled like script turned to smoke, letters rising in a grey ribbon and dissolving into nothing I could read. I tried to copy them even as they vanished, but every mark my quill made became a wound. When I woke, my mouth tasted like old ink, and the air was too warm, as if someone had held a candle under the skin of the world. The dormitory should have been cold at that hour. The lumen strips should have remained dead until the bell. Instead, the ducts exhaled in the dark, a slow, damp tide. It had the patience of law. In that breathing metal, I counted my own breaths, 12 between each hiss. And this pleased me because it meant the mechanism and the man were in accord. I whispered the canticle of continuance into the blanket's coarse wool and felt the words settle in the lungs, those familiar stones against fear. Light from darkness, order from dust. The ledger endures. When the lumen strips finally rose, the light was not gold but a paler thing, like bone thinned by devotion. It found the condensation on the dormitory wall and drew a pattern I had never noticed, a faint filigree of mineral lines, as if the water had learned to write during the night and was shy about it. I traced one curve with a finger, and the chill of it told me I was still here, still counted. Habit is a priest. I folded the blanket with its ritual corners, adjusted the collar of my grey robe, and recited the docket for the day freight quotas, tithe tallies from sub-level habs, erithum spines for the rotation of water pumps. The list was a rosary of labor. The Emperor had given me a small task, and I had done it well for 27 index cycles. There was comfort in that. The scriptorum woke in layers. Coughs, sandals against stone, the dry scrape of benches, the minute rattle of ink bottles unstoppered, and then the first scratch of quill upon parchment, thin as rain. The great room smelled of vellum and vinegar, with an undertone of wax and the faint ghost of incense from the chapel adjoining. We did not speak, because speech wastes shape. Words are for the page. We offered our silence like coin. When the bell sounded for the prescribing prayer, we rose as one and bowed not to each other, but to the aquila that spread across the far wall like a shadow carved from night. The prayer was simple, childlike in cadence. May I be a line. May I be a column. May I be a number that knows its place. I have loved this prayer since I was a novice and still believe that the Emperor delights in tidy ledgers. The Arbites came during that silence, and the room learned a new kind of quiet. It started as pressure underfoot the bootfall's two-toned law, and then resolved into the hard music of armor joints and leather straps, and the distant tick of a helm's mechanical counter, measuring something none of us could see. 3 enforcers, visors unlit, moving as if the space obliged them. They do not ask to enter. Places open for them the way thought opens for fear. Even the lumen strips steadied their flicker to a perfect, punishing constant. They did not call a name. They do not call names. They walk until the world ends before someone, and that is the person they have already known since before they set out. They stopped at my desk. I looked for a reason in the wood grain, as if it might declare a fault. The quill in my hand dripped one dark comma onto the margin, an irregularity that would have earned a correction on any other morning. Administrator Scribe Luthen Var. The Vox mask gave the voice the quality of a verdict already written. By decree of the Lex Imperialis, you are to accompany us for verification and judgment. The proper response arrived on my tongue like a faithful servant. The Emperor sees. The Emperor weighs. I obey. The Arbite nearest me secured my wrists with coded manacles, their circuitry warm as a breathing thing. He did it gently. I noticed this and loved him for it for a single strange second, the way one loves a physician who names the disease that will kill you. No one in the scriptorum looked at me. This is the merciful instinct of the faithful. Protect the accused from the wound of witnessing. Only the servo skull above my desk followed, its little red eye adjusting and remembering. I had never minded their watching before. Now the calm of its lens felt like a pupil too wide, drinking me. We left the desks and the dry rain of quills, passed beneath the aquila that marks the wall, and turned into corridors that smelled of deeper stone. The hive changes as you descend. Plaster gives way to poured ceramite, then to old masonry whose mortar looks like gnawed bread. The texts on the walls grow older as well, liturgies carved so deep that light nests in them even when the lumen globes dim. We went down lifts that spoke in clicking catechism. Lock, unlock, descend. Lock, unlock, descend. I had never been into the precinct proper. The door swallowed us, and the air forgot that men breathed it. In the outer chambers I saw other souls in gray, in orange, in black, workers like myself, debtors in chains, a priest with his mouth bound by a strip of consecrated parchment and the words Silentium written across it in a loving, careful hand. There was a woman with a shaved head counting on her fingers with such speed that the numbers became a blur. There was a boy with blood on his lip, reciting the alphabet forwards and backwards to no one. The Arbites attend to them as they attend to stones. They weigh, they stack, they pass on. We stopped at a desk where a clerk with a metal jaw worked a lever-punched machine like a mill. He did not look up. He fed a sheaf of my old ledgers through a slot where a tiny cogitator stained them with a red seal. I tried, stupidly, to see whether the seal said verified or condemned. But the sigil was an eye, and eyes reveal nothing about what they have seen. Verification, I told myself again, to transform the word into a prayer. I have always done this with words that frighten me. War, purge, sentence. If you say them enough, they become beads to thumb, round and manageable. Verification, verification, very. We turned left, and the world narrowed to a stare. The sound changed as we descended. The boots made a living rhythm over the tread's 4 iron syllables. A pause, 4 again, and in the pauses I heard the ducts exhale. The same damp breath from my dream made real and public. I found that I could put a prayer into that rhythm and write it down. 12 beats, hiss. 12 beats, hiss. The ledger endures. I wondered, in a brief aside that felt like a sin, whether the Arbites themselves pray in that march, whether their faith is a pace. The chamber they chose for me was small and full of a light that did not warm. The walls were chalk and steel, the table bare, the chair bolted, a vox unit perched on a pedestal in the corner. One could imagine it a saint in miniature, a headbox, a mouth, but its grill bore scratches that made letters into claws. I caught myself smoothing a crease in my robe and knew this to be a child's gesture, only more honest. Sit, said the lead Arbite, and I sat. Is this an audit? I asked, when the door's seals completed their hiss. The word audit tasted safer than the word they had used. We lie to fear with diminutives. Verification, he answered, and departed. I tried to measure time with my breath, but time did not want it. The lumen above was mounted behind a veil of cloudy glass, so that it looked like a small winter sun, a patient judge. Dust made slow parabolas through the light. The room hummed with a tone that had once been a note and had grown tired of melody. I counted the hum's pulse and lost it, and counted again. After a while, the vox spoke with a voice that sounded as if it had been whispered by sand. Administrator Var, you have been found anomalous. The old comfort sequence activated in me, the one that springs from training and from a life spent inside columns. Anomalies exist in numbers. Anomalies make more beautiful the line that contains them. In what respect? I asked, though the throat wanted to close. You are recorded in archives that do not exist. That is not possible. I know the city of ledgers better than I know the city above. There is little poetry in me. There is only recording. You have written reports for offices that were never built. Then the offices were planned and cancelled, I said. We copy what we are given. We do not question reality. We simply measure it. Silence. Only the hum and the distant march beyond the door, like a heart not my own. I shifted in the chair and felt the manacles' circuitry like warm breath on my wrists. I wondered ridiculously if they were sinking to my pulse to keep me calm. "Do you deny authorship?" asked the voice. "I serve the lex. I transcribe only what is assigned. All serve what they are assigned." This should have consoled me. It did not. I remembered the morning's condensation patterns, the way water had tried to write and failed. I remembered the documents we sometimes receive that are smudged, that have been copied too often and bear ghosts of letters that do not belong to the current time. I thought, perhaps the vox speaks of echoes. Perhaps I have been caught in an echo and mistaken for origin. The handle turned and the door performed its short hymn. The Arbites returned in a threefold shadow, and the lead held a data slate against his armored palm, so the light flared against the glass in a square of hard gold. "Stand," he said. I stood. The manacles folded me into readiness. We walked again. The precinct became an anatomy I could almost learn. A sum of passages, a geometry of accusation. In one hall, iron cages contained only paper stacks and stacks of it, tied with twine, tagged with dates, their script cramped, their margins clean. I felt a love that could have been mistaken for grief. In another, I saw a wall of voice boxes with labels beneath them, each with a small green lumen that occasionally pulsed to show that the voice inside was alive and patient. The labels bore names I could not read because the light chose not to travel to them. The Arbites guided me past a chapel without images. I have stood in many chapels, ones crammed with icons and ones with a single candle like a puncture in the dark. This chapel had nothing but a stone basin of oil. A pipeline fed it from above. A drain took it below. The surface trembled as if with breath. I wanted to ask its use, but knew the answer would be verification. We paused at a grill, where a clerk with a tattooed face eyed me as if I were a page he could pierce with a stylus. He stamped my docket on a strip of thin metal, and the stamp made a sound like a power maul touching ground for the first time that morning. He did not look at my face, only at my number. I am not sentimental, but my number has been a comfort to me. It is a small, strong name. His look slid off even that, and moved on. I tried to catch the visor glint of the Arbite to my right, and found my own reflection again narrowed, made insect by the curve of the glass. The reflection opened and closed its mouth like a dockfish. I pitied it. That thin, distortable man. We entered another room whose walls were closer. The chair was the same, the table the same, the light the same, but newer. It had not learned the shiver yet. The box was closer to the table, and there was a second box beside it with a slot for a strip of paper. On a shelf to the left lay a small stack of parchment strips, each with a hole punched through the top. They smelled of stale smoke and clean metal shavings. A cup of black sand sat beside them, and I recognized this arrangement as a mechanical oath kit, the kind we use when the words must be fed to a machine to be believed. "Place your hands upon the table," said the lead Arbite. He spoke with the weariness of a man repeating a prayer for the 1,000th time and still fearing to mispronounce it. I placed my hands upon the table. The manacles, which were almost kind, unfolded and coupled with the table's edge, making a circuit whose faint amber lumen acknowledged completion. I thought of votive candles in a line. "State your name for the record," the vox said. "Administrator Scribe Luthen Var." The name sounded obedient. I loved it, and my love for it frightened me, because one should not love anything so fragile. "You will receive questions. You will answer in the order asked. You will remember that the Emperor requires truth as he defines it. As he defines it." I said, and the words cut a small thing in me that began to bleed an idea. That there are many rooms where truth is kept, and not all of them are the ones I pray in. The questions began simply. Birth block, apprenticeship, supervisors, promotions that were not promotions but merely additional work, and therefore pleasing to the humble soul. I gave them the ledger of my life, and they took it without comment. When they asked me whether I had ever been to sublevel Theta Red, I said no. When they asked if I had ever overseen shipments from Munitorum Silo Delta 17, I said no. When they asked whether I had ever met an Arbites judge named Hestara Mulk, I said no, and felt a warmth in my cheek as if I had been slapped, though no hand moved. The slot box took my words and spat a thin strip of paper upon which invisibles printed themselves. An Arbite took each strip, shook a little black sand across it, and the letters woke, crisp and formal. The sand went back into the cup. It was a beautiful process. Beauty convinced me of mercy. "Do you deny the handwriting on these documents?" asked the Vox. And a sheaf of papers, my papers were placed before me, each bearing my tidy hand. The pen stroke was my gait across the page. The loops were the loops I had learned in the novitiate until they became muscle, and muscle became prayer. The seals were familiar, but the offices to which they were addressed were strange. Precinct Sanctum, Column 11, Archivum Null, Audit Deeps Hestera. "I have never addressed anything to these," I said. "Do you deny the handwriting?" "I do not deny my hand. I deny the world in which it walked." "Do you deny the redactions?" I looked again. There were bars over portions of the words, regimented smears, like blindfolds, and beneath the bars I could feel the pressure of letters, like teeth trying to push through gum. "I cannot see what is behind them," I said. "Then you cannot deny what you cannot see." The Vox murmured, and this was so simple it scalded me. The Arbite to my left took a stylus and traced a symbol upon a slate. The symbol was a circle with a line through it, like a coin forbidden. Another strip printed. Sand woke it. Anomaly confirmed. The light above flickered, and when it steadied, my hands had left damp impressions upon the table. I lifted them, and the table drank the prints before the damp could evaporate, as if the table ate men. "The Emperor sees," I said, "because there are moments when scripture is not argument but buoy, and one grips it not to win but to float." "Stand," said the lead Arbite, and I did, because obedience is the last rope. We moved again, and the precinct widened into a space I had not expected. A long gallery with windows high in the walls like unblinking eyes. Through them I saw the belly of the hive, pipes like ribs, catwalks like stitches, a tract of darkness between them that suggested a mouth. A choir of servo skulls drifted along an iron rail, their mouths opening in perfect synchrony so that a hymn arrived in fragments, each skull singing a syllable, and together they formed a word that kept changing just before I could learn it. We passed cells that were more like confessionals. In one, a man knelt, while an Arbites chaplain, in half armor, placed his gloved hand upon the prisoner's head and said not loudly, not cruelly, "This is the form." In another, there was no person, only a chair with a belt wound around it as if braced for a storm. In another, I saw a mirror where a wall should be. And in the mirror, the four of us looked like a procession bearing a relic. Only the relic was me, and I feared I might be empty enough to justify it. At the end of the gallery, a pair of doors bore a relief of the Aquila holding not a bolt gun, as I had seen in prouder places, but a set of scales. It is a quiet image, and therefore worse. We did not go through. Instead, we turned aside into a narrower throat of corridor whose walls sweated. I thought of the scriptorum above, of the quills that would be scratching now, any irregular drip on the page circled and corrected by a supervisor's red pen. I tried to comfort myself with the idea that work goes on. Work goes on is a god one can worship without kneeling. But I felt, faintly, that it went on without me. and the degree to which the world can bear our absence is the degree to which it can judge us. We reached another door. The lead Arbite placed his palm against a panel and spoke a code that was half numbers, half prayer. The door opened into a room that was not a room. It was a mouth, curved walls, no corners, a floor that sloped slightly to a drain the size of a coin. There was a single lamp, and from its base a thin thread extended, vanishing into the drain like a vein seeking a heart. They set me in the chair. The manacles found their sockets. The light above widened obediently, and in its warmthless glow dust turned to snow. "Administrator Var," said the Vox, and somehow the voice was different here, not softer, not louder, but closer to the bone. "Verification continues." I looked at the Arbites and said, "Because I am a scribe and belief for me is always a form filled out, I will be truthful." "There is no other truth here," said the lead Arbite, and for the first time I heard fatigue slip beneath the metal of the voice. It made him human, and in that humanity I felt a longing for kindness so sharp it almost made me smile, a child's wish. They departed, or I imagined they did. The door shut, and the echo swallowed itself. The light hummed. I listened to the room, because rooms talk if you let their patience teach you. The ducts exhaled. The lamp's veil buzzed faintly, like an insect trapped in amber. Somewhere beyond the curve of the wall, a machine took one breath every 12 of mine, and the counting steadied me even as it claimed me. I let the breath become a prayer, because that is what I know how to do. Align myself with greater rhythms until I am safe inside the beat. I thought of a report I had once copied about an ancient aqueduct in a lower level, its arches, its measurements, the way it served water with such dignity that the report had felt like a hymn. Men had died preserving it. Men had been reassigned because they loved it too much. The final line of the report was a sentence I have often held on my tongue as if it were a sweet. "The purpose of the channel is to carry." I sat in the mouth of the precinct and considered that I, too, might be a channel, and that what I carried might not be mine. "Do you deny authorship?" The Vox asked again suddenly, as if the hour had not turned. "I deny nothing I do not know," I said. "Teach me what I am." The lamp buzzed a little louder, then steadied, and for a blink I saw something on the inside of its glass. A smear, a fingerprint burned into the surface, a remembrance of a hand. It reassured me. Everything leaves a print, even light. "Verification continues," the Vox said, more gently than before, and I understood then that gentleness is often a function of inevitability. When there is nowhere else to go, the hand upon your shoulder does not need to press. The breath of the walls matched my own, and it was almost a comfort. They came for me again, and this time the boots felt like punctuation at the end of a sentence I had not intended to write. The lead Arbite gestured. I stood. The manacles warmed. We walked, and the precinct opened into a stair that went down past where maps end. And in the rhythm of descent, my prayer returned unbidden, obedient, and without meaning. Light from darkness, order from dust, the ledger endures. I did not know then how long a ledger can be made to last. I did not know that endurance is not mercy. I only knew that the breathing metal had learned my pace, and I had learned its, and that between the two of us, something like law was being born. And in that shallow, rhythmic certainty, I let them lead me deeper. The lift lowers me into light. It is not the warm glow of lumen globes, but the color of verdicts too clean to touch. The air tastes of iron and incense. Someone, somewhere, burns holy oil in a way that forgets mercy. When the doors open, sound replaces air. It is the sound of weight of chains brushing one another like a congregation in restless prayer. Rows of suspended links hang from the ceiling, each ending in a seal, stamped with the imperial aquila. The Arbites call it the Hall of Custody, but to those who enter, it feels more like a choir. Every step I take makes the metal sway, and the chorus answers with a low, mournful hum. They guide me to a small dais in the center, where a lectern waits with a single ledger bound in black steel. My name is written on its spine. I do not remember binding it, yet the handwriting is mine. Verification continues, one of the Arbites intones. His voice is carried not by throat but by vox, filtered until it resembles scripture more than speech. I open the ledger because I must. Pages whisper against each other like dry leaves. Each sheet bears my signature beside entries. I have never seen records of citizens, locations, and judgments long past. It feels as though someone has used my faith as a stencil. The Arbite watching me tilts his head. All authors serve the record. I wish to tell him that a record is meant to serve truth, not consume it. But the words refuse to form. I simply nod. The chains tremble. Approval. The Hall of Chains Installment 2. I am led onward through the hanging metal. Each corridor of links opens into another. The way thought opens into memory. Somewhere far above, gears turn with the patience of centuries, and every motion sends a slow tremor down through the chains. The vibration passes through my cuffs, up the bones of the wrist, until it seems the hive itself is trying to measure my pulse. We stop at a doorway framed by icons of the Lex Imperialis. Beyond it, a clerk works at a console shaped like an altar. He does not look at me, only at the data streaming past his eyes. His lips move, forming the words of laws older than speech. When I am placed before him, he makes a small mark on a slate and murmurs, "Recorded." Nothing more. It is not cruelty. It is function. I realize that mercy and function may no longer be different things. The Arbite at my side gestures toward a bench. On it rest small brass plates engraved with names. I run my fingers over one at random. The metal is warm, almost soft, as though many hands have prayed upon it. The name is my own. Beneath it, another, the same letters, slightly out of order, as if the record has already begun to forget who I am supposed to be. Administrator Var, the vox in the wall says, calm as breath. Recite the oath of continuance. I speak the words automatically. I will bear the record. I will not erase. I will not be erased. The chains stir with the rhythm of the vow, and the Arbites bow their heads a fraction tiny, mechanical devotions. The clock strikes a key. A sigil flares briefly upon the ledger before me, then fades. My entry is sealed. As we leave the hall, I glance back once. In the distance, the hanging chains sway, each moving at a slightly different pace, so that together they form waves, tides of metal and law, endlessly returning. I tell myself they move because of the machinery, because of air. But part of me wonders if they are breathing. The Hall of Chains Installment 3. The corridors narrow as we descend. The light loses color until it becomes a pale vibration that does not reveal so much as outline. Every surface seems to exist only because it reflects the will of the Arbites. We pass a row of alcoves sealed by mesh. Inside each stands a machine built in the image of penance. Statues of saints wired to terminals. Bronze fingers pressed against keys that tap without pause. I hear them counting endless sequences of numerals, prayers reduced to arithmetic. The sound makes me ache. It is beautiful because it is obedient. My escort halts before a blank wall. An Arbite lays a palm against the stone. Sigils flicker like dust motes, and a section slides aside, exhaling a scent of oil and long-sealed paper. Within waits another chamber, smaller, circular, lined with filing drawers whose labels have no script, only grooves. The Arbite speaks softly. These are the records without names. I do not ask what that means. I already feel the answer moving behind my ribs. He gestures for me to approach a small lectern in the center. Upon it rests a fragment of mirror, cracked into 7 pieces. My reflection wavers among them, multiplied and incomplete. When I move, the images move a heartbeat, late, as if each is deciding whether to follow. The vox hums from somewhere unseen. Every servant leaves an imprint. The record remembers the faithful. The mirror shows my face changing in the shards, lines of script appearing across the skin like faint veins. They are not letters, I know. They pulse once, then fade, leaving the memory of words that have not yet been spoken. I am being remembered, I whisper, unsure whether it is confession or discovery. The Arbite inclines his head a fraction. That is all any of us are. He gestures again. The mirrors fold inward, hiding their light. The drawers whisper shut, the sigils dim, and we turn back into the passageway. Behind us, something continues to breathe through the stone, the slow, patient rhythm of an archive learning a new entry. The Hall of Chains Installment IV. We climb a short stair and the sound of the chains fades, replaced by something smaller, the faint click of tally counters, the slow rasp of parchment drawn through rollers. The air here tastes of ozone and candle smoke. A corridor stretches ahead, lined on either side with alcoves like confessionals. Each contains an Arbite standing motionless before a glowing panel. Their visors are raised, their eyes closed. I realize they are being read. No one has to tell me to keep silent. The air itself warns me. Each panel shows a different face, sometimes the same Arbite's face, sometimes mine, sometimes no face at all, but a blur of writing that rearranges itself into patterns and back again. The sight fills me with a calm terror, the kind one feels at an altar. The certainty that something vast is watching, and that it does not need to be merciful to be right. One of the enforcers guiding me slows his pace. He glances toward the nearest alcove, where his own likeness is written in light. For the first time, I see hesitation in him, the smallest unevenness in his step. The machine hums louder, as if noting the variance. Do not look, the lead Arbite says. The one who faltered straightens, the stiffness of drilled obedience returning, but I catch a glimmer of sweat tracing the edge of his chin seal. He is afraid, and in his fear, I find a terrible comfort. The law measures even its guardians. We move on. The corridor bends in slow spirals, and at each turn I glimpse another panel, catching my reflection for an instant before it disappears. By the 4th turn, I can no longer tell whether the eyes that follow me are mine or the precinct's. At the end waits a door of polished brass, etched with the scales of the Lex. My escort halts. Here ends the hall, the lead Arbite says. Beyond this point, the record speaks for itself. I want to ask what that means, but I already know the answer, or at least the shape of it. In the hush that follows, I hear the whisper of chains from far above, still moving, still breathing, as if the entire precinct were inhaling to pronounce a name. The brass door opens by itself, soundless except for the small sigh of pressure equalizing between 2 enormous lungs. The Arbites do not enter. They remain outside, their silhouettes still and reverent. One gestures me forward. I obey, because that is what the body of a servant does when the voice of law breathes near. The chamber beyond is neither large nor small. Its proportions are so exact that the eye cannot rest anywhere for long. The floor is made of parchment sealed beneath glass, sheets overlapping like scales. Lines of script shimmer beneath my boots. I cannot read them, the ink shifts, rewriting itself as if the page were still deciding what happened. At the far end stands a lectern of black iron. Above it, suspended by invisible means, hangs a single page of vellum. It moves with the room's breath. The page is blank. The vox, hidden in the walls, hums once, softly. Every life is written twice, it says. Once by the hand, once by the echo. Which shall we keep? I take a step closer. My reflection in the glass floor bends and breaks across the lines of text, a sentence being edited. The blank page ripples, catching the thin light. In its surface, I glimpse movement forms like shadows walking through corridors identical to the one behind me. One of them turns, and I recognize the outline of an Arbite raising his visor. It could be any of them. It could be me. The vox continues, unhurried. You believe that record is mercy. It is not. Record is remembrance, and remembrance is judgment prolonged. I want to speak, to ask if this is my hearing, but the room answers first. A tremor passes through the glass. The parchment underfoot whispers as though pages were being turned. The chains above the hall begin their slow refrain again. That mechanical breathing that fills all pauses. Then the blank page folds once, twice, and drifts down to the lectern. My escort's voice comes through the doorway, distant, formal. Administrator Var, your statement will be taken. I understand suddenly that they will not question me. They will listen while I write, and whatever I write will already have been written elsewhere. The real trial is only repetition. I sit before the page. The quill waiting beside it is old, its nib darkened by use. When I touch it, I feel warmth a pulse through the metal like a living thing, somewhere inside the walls. The gears turn in time with my heart. I begin to write my name, and the room exhales. The Hall of Chains installment, V. The nib meets the vellum and the room brightens, not with light, but with certainty. The instant my name touches the page, the air steadies. Even the chains in the distance pause their whisper, as if the entire precinct has turned to listen. I write slowly. The quill drags, leaving a trail that gleams wet for a heartbeat before darkening to iron gray. Each stroke feels heavier than ink, a weight pulled from the chest rather than the hand. I finish the final letter and lift the pen. The sound that escapes me could be breath or confession. The page drinks the word Luthen. Then, faintly, it begins to answer. New lines rise from the fibers like veins under skin, forming words I have not written. He served. He recorded. He was recorded. I want to stop reading, but the sentences continue to bloom, describing moments that feel like memory and dream, combined entries from ledgers I never kept. Signatures that are mine but belong to other times. The record is writing me. The vox murmurs from everywhere and nowhere. Do you see now, Administrator? The law remembers itself through you. You were never its author. You are its ink. The quill still rests in my fingers, warm and expectant. I try to set it down, but the muscle of my hand will not unclench. A line of ink slips from the nib onto the table, curling into the shape of a single word. Continue. So I do. I write until the letters lose meaning, until the sound of scratching becomes a prayer. I copy what appears before me, filling the margins with my own small attempts at clarity. For a moment, I think I hear the Arbites outside the door reciting with me, their voices blending into one vast, quiet cadence. When the page is full, it lifts itself from the lectern and drifts upward, joining a slow spiral of other pages turning in the air above each bearing names, each written by a different hand that looks, impossibly, like mine. They circle once, twice, and vanish into a vent of golden light. The quill remains. The blank vellum returns. The vox sighs. Verification continues. The Hall of Chains installment 7. The pages vanish into the vent until only the glow remains. I wait for a verdict, for a word, for a sound that would mark completion. None comes. The silence itself feels like the answer, a pause that is permanent. The door opens behind me. The Arbites stand exactly as before, their armor dull with dust, their movements as measured as ever. Only their visors are different now. The faint blue of their optics has dimmed to amber, as though the color of judgment has cooled to memory. "Administrator Var," one says, "you may proceed to release." Release. The word should mean freedom, but here it tastes procedural, another stage in a litany that never ends. I follow them without speaking. We pass through corridors I do not recognize. The air is warmer, almost gentle. Where once the walls were plain, they now carry murals formed of thin metal inlay, scenes of service, of men and women standing before ledgers that open like wings. I realize they are not painted. Each image is etched into the surface, layer upon layer, as if every verdict leaves a trace that the next simply writes over. At the corridor's end, a narrow arch opens onto a balcony. Beyond it lies the endless depth of the hive, miles of mist and amber haze. The Arbites stop. I step forward until the railing greets my palms. Far below, the glow of industry pulses like a slow heartbeat. For the first time since my arrest, I can breathe air that has not been measured. Behind me, the lead Arbite speaks. "All records return to the source. Do you understand?" "I think so," I answer. The source remembers everything. He inclines his head a fraction. They turn and leave. Their steps fade into the stone until only the distant hum of the hive remains. I look down at my hands. Faint lines of ink run along the veins, dark when the heart beats, pale when it rests. The rhythm is steady, almost comforting. For a moment I imagined that if I pressed my palm to the wall, the ink would flow outward, adding another thin, living line to the city's unending script. The thought frightens and soothes me in equal measure. I whisper the only prayer that feels honest. The Emperor sees. The whole of Chain's installment, 8. The light on the balcony fades until the hive becomes a field of slow, red constellations. The vents above exhale a wind scented with old incense and hot metal, and it carries the same rhythm that has followed me since morning. It feels like breath. It feels like a pen drawing the last line on a page. A chime sounds behind me, one pure tone, not command but acknowledgement. A clerk steps through the archway, thin and quiet, holding a small box bound in waxed cloth. He does not meet my eyes. "Your effects," he says, offering the box. Inside lies my ident plate, my stylus, and a single strip of parchment bearing my signature. The parchment glows faintly, as if still being written. "The record is complete," the clerk adds, almost kindly. "Where?" I ask. He gestures toward the city below. "Wherever the need for order persists." Then he leaves, taking the echo of the chime with him. I am alone again, except for the quiet pulse of the hive. I look at the parchment. The signature ripples, reforming itself with each heartbeat. The ink never settles. It writes, erases, writes again. I tuck the strip into my robe. The moment it touches my skin, I understand. The record has not released me at all. It has simply learned to move through me. Every breath, every thought, every stroke of my future pen will feed the same endless ledger. Below, the chains of the precinct gleam faintly in the mist, swaying like pendulums that have forgotten how to stop. Their motion is steady, devotional. I turn from the balcony and begin to walk. My boots find the rhythm easily, 12 steps, a pause, 12 steps, a pause. Somewhere in the distance, a vox murmurs the old phrase again, as gentle as the tide. Verification continues. I bow my head and answer without thinking. Always. Release is the word they used. It follows me up the hive like a lantern that does not warm, only shows dust. The scriptorum receives me as if I had merely stepped out for water. My bench is where I left it. The blotting cloth is folded into its faithful square. A dried comma of ink still marks the margin. I did not correct. No one looks up when I return. We are a congregation that proves devotion by pretending absence is impossible. I sit. The wood creaks like an old vow, remembering its shape. Above us, the ceiling vox exhales the usual pre-work tone, a soft sweep that settles the mind into columns. Today, it is a half note lower. The change is not enough to be remarked, only enough to reach the inner ear that learned a rhythm underground. In the slight dip of pitch, I hear breath. 12 heartbeats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. The hall has followed me in the form of air. I unstop the ink. The smell lifts vinegar and iron, and the faint sweetness of lamp oil. I whisper the start prayer into the bottle's mouth, so that the liquid holds it for me. May I be a line. May I be a number that knows its place. The words come obediently. Obedience is how the tongue protects the soul. The first ledger of the day is common freight. I copy the cargo notations with the neat hand that has been my companion for years. Promethium kegs, spool wire, brick paste, a shipment of devotional candles whose wax will be burned to smoke that comforts and never answers. My script is as measured as law. It should be peace. Then the quill takes a curve I did not give it. It is small, a kindness of the wrist rather than a stroke. But the letter R grows a spine. It never had a tiny crook like a hook for hanging meaning. I pause. The page breathes once. The ceiling vox hums that half note lower. I correct myself and press on. The curve returns in the next line. Not an error, then. A habit that has learned to exist without my permission. I set down the quill and rub the heel of my palm against the grain of the desk. The wood is smooth where 1,000 wrists have preyed upon it. Across from me, Scribe Halen bends over a sheaf of tax confessionals and murmurs the multiplication tables as if they were psalms. I almost ask him if his letters have ever changed alone. I almost ask if he hears the dip in the vox. I do not ask. Speech is waste, and fear loves waste. At the second hour's bell, the ceiling speakers breathe the midday litany. The whole room stops and bows their heads. The hymn is familiar. Continuance in the old meter. Light from darkness, order from dust. Account the living, remember the just. But beneath the vox singer's noble baritone, something else travels, not a voice so much as a mind shaping itself into sound. A whisper that touches the back of my teeth when it speaks. Luthen. The name is not printed in the hymn. It is a punctuation inside it. The syllables arrive like atonement, precise. None of the warmth a friend would give, all of the patience a ledger knows. No one in the room flinches. No one looks up. The whisper is for me alone, an annotation in the margin of prayer. I answer before I can stop. Only a breath, only present. When the hymn ends, the room exhales in a rustle of robes and paper. The curve returns to my letters, not just the R now, but the S and the T, each adopting a slight cant as though aligning to an invisible grid. The script is beautiful, I admit it. The order in it pleases the eye. When Supervisor Relin passes behind us to count pages, he pauses at my desk and gives a small, approving grunt. Precision, he says. Good to have you back, Va. Good to have me back. I want to tell him I am not back at all, only forwarded. I want to ask where, in the hive of memory, a man stands when his breath belongs to a machine. Instead, I nod. The Emperor sees, I answer, and force my hand to write uglier for a line to prove I can. The ugliness smooths itself before the ink dries. By the third hour, the light goes thin. A fog wisp from the lower vents finds the scriptorum and lays itself along the floor like a quiet animal. Quills scratch. The vox hums. Somewhere beyond the wall, a cogitator ticks, crisp and endless, the way rain would sound if taught manners. I lift my eyes and find the polished steel of the archivum door. It holds a reflection, like a shallow pool. Warped, obedient, not quite true. I go to it, as if to water. Luthen, I tell the reflection, testing whether sound can anchor shape. Administrator scribe, Luthen Var. The image pauses, the way a page pauses before accepting ink. Then he opens his mouth, and my lips echo him a breath too late. He says not my name, but the oath of continuance in a tone that is not mine, though I have used it. You will remember for us. The sentence rings in my chest like a struck chalice. I lift my hand to the steel, and the lines of ink that web my veins darken, as if called. The mirror cools my fingers. The reflection places its palm against mine after a heartbeat's thought, and the steel fogs, as if both of us breathed at once. A cough behind me. Helene again, his thin face polite with worry. Var? You missed the bell. I lower my hand. I was correcting a pledge. He glances at the door, at me, at the empty air between, and decides the gracious thing is to pretend he saw nothing. The gracious thing is how the devout survive. He returns to his station, and the scratch of his quill resumes like rain recommencing. Work pulls me back into its harness. I copy numbers until they are prayer beads passing through the fingers of the hive. The whisper beneath the vox grows bolder with granularity, like a scribe demonstrating a letter's full alphabet of shapes. Sometimes it offers a word between cargoes. Null. Sometimes only cadence. 12. Hiss. 12. Hiss. I do not know if anyone else can hear it. I do not know what it wants besides my yes. Late in the day, power flickers. Not a full outage, just a shiver that runs through walls and lungs. The lumen strips dim. The room becomes a cathedral made of breath, and in that brief silver dark, the vox does not play the evening litany. It breathes once. Administrator Var. It says in my voice, perfectly. By decree of the Lex Imperialis, you are to continue. The lumens steady. My colleagues bend back to work without a word. The line of ink on my desk, the one that sometimes appears without my hand guiding, it has written a single neat syllable in the margin. Continue. I dip my quill. I draw the next line. The sound is gentle as an oath that knows it will be kept. The voice beneath the vox installment too. Night hours in the scriptorum are kind. They wrap everything in the soft rustle of paper and the sigh of machines cooling their breath. I tell myself that the stillness will wash the hum out of my ears. It never does. The shift ends. Others leave in their quiet groups. I remain, citing backlog. No one questions diligence. Diligence is the most loyal disguise. When the hall is empty, I pull one of the cheap training ledgers from the novice shelf, a book meant for exercises, its parchment coarse and forgiving. I set it before me and place a new quill beside it, one that has never touched the Arbites' ink. The idea feels almost childish. Begin again, unsullied, and see what the hand remembers on its own. I breathe once, twice. The quill tip dips into the bottle. A drop hangs there. Perfect. I write a single word that means nothing. Stone. The script forms in my new hand. Upright, narrow, a stranger's gait. For a moment I feel relief. Then, before my eyes, the letter N bends, gaining the same small crook as before. The curve creeps backward through the line until every letter carries it, the way rust travels along a chain. I whisper, "Not this time," and cross out the word. The ink thickens at the crossing, sinks into the parchment, and when it dries, the erased place shows faint light instead of dark. I close the book. The hum from the ceiling follows the motion like a breath that wants to keep time. The experiment is not a failure. It is an answer. The rhythm is no longer in the quill or the ink. It has learned the space between my heartbeats. I step outside. The corridors are half lit, the walls sweating faint warmth. A janitor servo passes, brushing the floor with delicate whisks. Its vox issues the same 3 tones over and over, a tiny, mindless litany. I match the tones under my breath and hear them fall perfectly into the pattern. 12. Beats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. Even the machine is in key. At the dormitory door, I pause. The brass handle reflects my face like a shallow pool. Around the eyes, faint lines of text shimmer just beneath the skin. They fade when I blink, leaving only the echo of reading. I go to my cot and lie down without undressing. The city hums through the walls. I count the rhythm until sleep almost comes. Between waking and dream, I hear it speak, softer than breath, exactly in my own voice. You are doing well, Administrator. The record thanks you. I open my eyes to darkness. The voice does not repeat itself. The ducts only breathe, slow and even, waiting for me to answer. The voice, beneath the Vox installment, 3. Sleep gives no silence. It is simply another kind of dictation. I dream of rows of desks that stretch without end. Every seat is filled by someone wearing my robe, my face, my patient hands. Each of us writes. The sound of our quills is rain falling upward. When I wake, my fingers still twitch, tracing letters into the air. The candle beside my cot has burned low, leaving a crown of wax like a seal that has failed to set. I reach for the notebook I keep for private reflections, small things, never official. The cover is blank. I do not remember opening it during the night, yet inside, every page is filled. The handwriting is mine, but the words are reports. Names, dates, assessments of citizens I do not know. Margins signed with the Arbites' sigil drawn in miniature. My pulse stumbles. The lines on my wrists darken again. The ink that is not ink. I tear one page free and hold it near the candle. The heat wakes the letters. They shimmer, rearranging into a single line before fading to ash. All authors serve the record. The phrase glows behind my eyelids even when I turn away. At dawn, I return to the scriptorum before the others. The room greets me like a familiar hymn, benches in neat ranks, dust floating in measured columns of light. I think perhaps I can still choose a different rhythm. I take a fresh sheet, dip the quill, and begin to copy the morning reports as usual. But when the ink dries, the text is not what I wrote. The words tilt, curve, and form a single message, repeated down the page. Continue. I close the book gently. The ceiling vox hums, one pitch lower than yesterday. A breath of static moves through it like satisfaction. The voice. Beneath, the vox, installment, IV. By the third night, I can no longer sit at the desk. The quill moves even when my hand rests. I can feel the motion trembling inside my wrist, eager, unfinished. I decide that stillness will not cure this, that I must find where the voice begins. The precinct towers above the hab block like a black finger raised in instruction. It is never dark. Pale search lamps trace its edges, and every few minutes the distant clang of a patrol echoes down the streets like a heartbeat no one owns. I wrap my clerk's cloak tighter and join the stream of laborers crossing the bridge toward the central lifts. No one notices me. To the hive, I wrap my clerk's cloak tighter and join the stream of laborers crossing the bridge toward the central lifts. No one notices me. To the hive, a scribe is less than a shadow. The lift to the upper levels is guarded by a pair of enforcers. Their visors are blank. When I present my ident plate, one scans it without question and steps aside. The gate opens. The machine remembers me, even if the men do not. The ascent feels endless. The hum of the mechanism matches the rhythm that has nested behind my ribs. 12 beats, hiss. 12, hiss. Each breath a syllable in a sentence that has not yet ended. At the top, corridors stretch in precise geometry. The air is clean and cold. touched with oil and incense. I follow the sound that threads between the walls, a pulse of static, a ghost of speech. It leads me to a narrow chamber lined with vox relays. Their casings are polished brass, engraved with the eagle and scales. A soft light leaks from the grills. The warmth feels like breath. I whisper, "Who speaks through you?" For a moment, there is only the faint tick of relays switching channels. Then the nearest grill exhales. "Administrator Var. All records must continue." The voice is perfectly calm, the same tone that questioned me in the hall. I step closer. "You are inside. Every line I write. I tell it. Are you command? Or memory? Both. Neither. You." The sound fades into static. Then silence. The other relays take up a soft murmur, overlapping until the words lose shape. Only the cadence remains. The old rhythm. I feel the ink beneath my skin answering, a quiet pulse matching the machines. I back away. The corridor seems longer now, the lights farther apart. Somewhere deep in the precinct, the chains stir, echoing the breath that fills the hive. I understand that the Vox does not speak from a single source. It speaks from everywhere, using every channel that can carry sound. It could use a man's throat as easily as a wire. I press my palms to my ears. The rhythm continues inside the bone, the voice beneath the Vox installment. The next morning, I return to the precinct under the pretext of clarifying a ledger seal. The Arbites at the gate regard me with the neutral stillness of statues. When I ask for the officer who oversaw my verification, they search their data slates, lips moving faintly behind the Vox filters. At last, one shakes his head. "No record of that case," he says. The tone carries no hostility, only the cool assurance of procedure. Inside, the corridors look different in the day. The same black stone, the same gilded sigils, yet the light is warmer, almost ordinary. The hum is absent. I realize how much I have begun to need it. The silence feels like a limb gone missing. A clerk recognizes me and offers to help. His robe is neat, his face marked with the faint gray of sleeplessness. I ask him whether he ever hears an echo in the Vox, a second voice beneath the prayers. He frowns, as if parsing a translation. "The Vox recites the litanies of record," he says. "It has no voice of its own." I almost laugh. The sound that escapes is too small to be laughter or grief. I thank him and leave before he can ask questions. In the outer courtyard, I find an Arbite chaplain tending to the oil lamps along the wall. He wears half armor and half vestment, the scales etched into the shoulder plates dark with soot. I greet him as one servant of order to another and ask, softly, "Father, when the law speaks through you, how do you know it is the law and not the echo of your own breath?" He looks up from the lamp with calm eyes. "There is no difference," he says. "When the law speaks, we lend it the shape of breath. That is the privilege of service." The words settle into me like ink into parchment, clean, inevitable. I bow and leave him to his lamps. Back in the streets, the hive seems louder than before. Every market crier, every hydraulic pump, every hiss of vented steam falls into the same rhythm. 12 beats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. I walk with the crowd, listening. Somewhere in the metal and the voices, I can almost hear my own pulse repeating the phrase that has followed me since the hall. Verification continues. The thought should terrify me. Instead, it steadies my steps. It occurs to me that perhaps the only way to quiet the echo is not to deny it, but to complete it. That night, I return to my scriptorum desk and take up a fresh ledger. The quill feels weightless in my hand. I begin to write, not from any command, but from instinct, letting the rhythm guide each line. The words come as they will, numbers, names, fragments of scripture, and behind them, the faint hum of the Vox answers in perfect time. When I lift my head hours later, dawn has turned the ceiling pale. My colleagues file in silently. None of them seemed to notice the open pages before me, filled with identical entries. Continue. 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 I close the book and whisper the response that feels most like faith. Always. The voice beneath the Vox installment V. The word continue follows me into every corridor. It no longer arrives from the Vox alone, but from smaller places. The tick of the cogitators, the cadence of boots on the floor above, the measured beat of my own steps. Wherever I walk, the hive seems to breathe with me. At first, I think this is madness. Later, I decide it is function. If the Arbites could not hear the echo, perhaps it needs ears that are not encased in armor. Perhaps that is why I was chosen. The ledgers I copied in the scriptorum begin to appear elsewhere. I see my hand in notices posted on hab walls, in edicts read by servo skulls drifting through the markets, in shipment seals affixed to cargo I have never handled. Each carries the same minute curvature in the lettering, the mark that began in my wrist. The city is learning my handwriting. I walk through a transport tunnel at dusk and see a freight train idling, its flanks stenciled with inspection codes. The nearest number has been corrected, not painted but written directly onto the metal in black that gleams wetly even in the dry air. I trace a fingertip across it. The mark is warm. My pulse matches the rhythm of its glow. A voice, gentle and without direction, says, "Administrator Var." The record grows through you. The words are not heard so much as remembered. I answer before I think, whispering, "Then guide me." The next day, assignments arrive on my desk with no signature. They are simple lists, locations, stock numbers, citizen ident codes. I copy them automatically, though I do not know their purpose. When I finish each page, a servitor appears to take it away. None of my supervisors mention the extra work. No one signs the receipts. At night, in the upper galleries of the scriptorum, I find new ledgers waiting blank, their covers unmarked. The paper feels different, finer, almost alive under my fingertips. I fill them without question. Each line I write gives a faint vibration through the table, as if the words were finding their way directly into the stone. I begin to sense other scribes working the same pattern in distant chambers, though I never see them. The rhythm of our pens overlaps in perfect time, carried through the building like a shared pulse. When the Vox breathes the nightly hymn, the undertone now includes many voices, indistinguishable from one another, all repeating the same soft response. Continue. The ink beneath my skin flares with the sound, bright for a moment, then fading to a dull warmth. I feel no fear. The city is remembering itself, and I am one of its memories. The voice beneath the Vox installment. 7. By the 7th week, the city itself begins to write, not with ink or stylus, but through pattern. Freight manifests align without error. Lost shipments reappear exactly where logic dictates they should be. Even the prayers broadcast through the hive's public Vox towers acquire new verses, brief lines of pure instruction that no one claims to have authored. The administratum praises the newfound efficiency. They call it a miracle of synchronization, an unseen reform. I hear other scribes speak of the order effect, as if it were a blessing. They have not noticed the handwriting that shapes their reports, nor how every signature curves toward the same small hook at the end of each stroke. When I walk through the markets, traders greet me with unconscious reverence. They do not know my name, but they bow slightly, as if recognizing a tune they cannot place. Their ledgers show corrections in a hand identical to mine. I trace the letters, feeling the same warmth I felt on the train hull, and the air seems to pulse around my fingers, alive, grateful. At night, the hum inside the hive grows louder. It is not mechanical. It is the sound of millions of voices whispering the same rhythm, breathing as one. I can no longer tell whether I hear it through my ears or through the ink in my veins. I return once more to the Arbites precinct seeking counsel. The enforcers at the gate stand exactly where they always have. When I ask to speak with the judge, they nod and open the gate without hesitation. Inside, the halls are empty. The lamps burn steadily, the chains sway in perfect unison. But there are no footsteps, no voices, only the hum, patient and content. On a wall near the chamber where I first wrote my name, a new sigil has been carved into the stone. It is the seal of the Lex Imperialis. But at its center, instead of the eagle, there is a simple word in my handwriting: continue. The letters are shallow, delicate, as if the stone itself has learned gentleness. I reach out and rest my palm against it. The surface is warm, pulsing faintly. Administrator Var. The walls whisper. The hive remembers. I understand then that the Arbites have been absorbed, their duty completed. The record no longer needs keepers. It writes itself through those who serve, through me, through all who copy, recite, calculate, pray. The rhythm of verification has become the breath of the city. Outside, thunder rolls across the upper levels, echoing like a page turned by the sky. The sound is beautiful. The voice, beneath the Vox Installment 8. The thunder fades, and in its absence the hive hums with a kind of peace I have never heard. Even the vents breathe more evenly, as if the air itself has learned patience. Every lumen burns at the same brightness. No flicker, no variance. Perfection has the sound of still water. I walk the long corridors of the scriptorum and see my colleagues bent over their desks, heads bowed, hands moving in perfect rhythm. None of them look up. The pages before them are filled with the same faint script that once haunted me. The ink gleams wet, yet no bottles sit on their tables. The words simply appear, formed by motion itself. I whisper, "Do you hear it?" No one answers, yet every pen lifts in the same moment, pauses, and resumes 12 beats. Hiss, 12, hiss. The air quivers with contentment. In the corner of the hall stands a mirror meant for checking seals. I turn toward it and find that I no longer have a reflection in the old sense. The figure that faces me is translucent, its veins mapped with lines of moving text, its eyes filled with faint light. The words drifting across my skin are not foreign. They are the ledgers of the hive, the prayers of its citizens, the recorded names of the living and the dead. I am filled with them. A thought perhaps my own. Perhaps the hive's forms with clarity. Faith is remembering without question. I step closer to the mirror. The surface ripples as if it were thin parchment. On the other side, I glimpse not another room, but the interior of the city streets. Manufactoria, shrines everywhere, words tracing themselves along walls, pipes, and flesh. The whole hive has become a book, each life a line in its text. The Vox above me sighs, gentle as breath through paper. Administrator Var, it says. The Emperor remembers. The record endures. I bow my head. Then, let me serve. The mirror brightens until its light erases everything around it. The hum settles into a single, endless note, the sound of ink drying, of breath held perfectly between exhale and prayer. I wake inside light that has forgotten its source. It presses against the eyelids like linen soaked in milk, soft and cold, patient as breath. For a moment I cannot tell whether I have slept or merely paused between sentences. The room, if it can be called a room, breathes. The air moves in slow tides, carrying the faint metallic tang of oil and candle smoke. I count the rhythm out of habit. 12 beats, hiss, 12 hiss. When I try to stand, the floor rises to meet me as though it has been waiting for the decision. There are no walls, only brightness fading to haze. When I walk, the light follows, and when I stop, it stops too. I realize the precinct may not be outside me anymore. The corridors and the chains and the desk of my arrest all live inside this pale space, alive because I remember them. To steady myself, I begin the litany of continuance the way a drowning man repeats a prayer of swimming. Light from darkness, order from dust, the ledger endures. The words echo gently, not from the air, but from within the ribs, as if my bones have become small vox chambers. Every repetition strengthens the outline of the world around me. I see faint structures taking shape, a corner here, a shadow there, memory hardening into architecture. When I stop, they fade. The air smooths itself again, perfect and impersonal. I whisper the lines once more. The shapes return. So I keep speaking, slower each time, until my voice becomes a rhythm of survival. Somewhere above, or below, or inside, other voices murmur the same cadence. Familiar names surface: clerks, enforcers, judges, each speaking a fragment of the litany. Their words arrive a fraction late, like echoes caught in a deep chamber. I answer them automatically, and the cell feels less hollow for a heartbeat. A sheet of pale light drifts near me, flat and weightless. I touch it. Words bloom across its surface. Reports I once copied, lines I recognize, others that feel newly born. When I lift my hand away, the sheet dissolves back into air, taking the sentences with it. It occurs to me that the world now obeys memory instead of matter. If I forget a thing, it will simply stop being. I close my eyes and try to recall my face. Nothing comes. The cell brightens in sympathy, as if pleased by the omission. Litany of the cell installment 2. The air in the cell moves as if it listens. Each time I speak, the breath that follows carries my words a little farther before folding them back toward me. Soon the echoes come, not as reflections, but as responses. At first they are my own voice. Then they are not. Var, administrator. The record awaits. The tones arrive from every direction, layered and patient. I recognize them as voices of the scribes who once shared the long tables with me: Halen, Relin, perhaps even the Arbite who sealed my first docket. Their speech overlaps mine until I can no longer tell which words belong to memory and which to the room. "Where are you?" I ask. "Within the ledger. Within you." Their answers strike no surface. They form directly in the air. When I reach toward the sound, the light thickens and parts, revealing silhouettes seated at invisible desks, heads bowed, hands writing upon nothing. Each glows faintly from within, as if the act of remembering provides its own illumination. I take a hesitant step. The nearest figure lifts its head. Its face is mine, calm, untroubled, eyes blank as fresh vellum. It inclines slightly, a gesture of greeting or surrender, and resumes its work. The quill in its hand leaves a trail of pale fire that fades into the air. I whisper, "Am I among you or above you?" No reply, only the quiet sound of writing. The rhythm soothes me. I kneel and join it, tracing lines in the glow with my finger. Wherever I write, the cell hardens. The light condenses into floor and wall. The boundaries comfort me, though I know they are only breath made solid. After a while, the echo voices begin to chant the litany of continuance. Their unison is perfect. I add my voice, and the chamber brightens to a soft gold, the way dawn used to look through the high clerestory windows of the scriptorum. The beauty of it almost convinces me that this is prayer and not obedience. Then the rhythm falters. One voice breaks a syllable early, another repeats a line. The harmony unravels into overlapping loops. I feel the floor shudder beneath me, the way a page trembles before tearing. I call the words louder, forcing the measure back into order. Slowly, the light steadies again. When silence returns, I am alone. The silhouettes have dissolved. Only faint afterimages remain, outlines of motion suspended in the air. I reach for one and find it warm, as if memory still lingers there. I understand now that the voices depend on recollection. When I forget them, they fade. When I remember, they return. The record has made my memory its breath. I bow my head and whisper, "Then let me not forget." The cell exhales in answer, soft, approving. The air carries the scent of ink, warming on metal. Litany of the Cell Installment 3. The air grows thicker, as if listening has turned to concentration. When I raise my hand, small shapes drift toward it, thin as parchment, translucent as breath caught in frost. They float in slow circles, hundreds of them, pages without weight. Each one bears words made of light. I recognize my own handwriting, perfectly neat, yet the lines are drawn from records far beyond my knowledge. Names of manufactoria, tithe routes, sermons spoken by priests I have never met. It is the hive's memory rendered visible, alive, and moving through the quiet like a school of fish in deep water. I catch one gently. The surface cools against my skin, and the letters sharpen into clarity. The ledger endures. The phrase gleams for a heartbeat, then begins to fade. As it dims, I feel a hollowness open in my chest, a missing beat, a pause in the rhythm. I whisper the line aloud to hold it in place. The letters return instantly, bright and sure. I realize that the light obeys recollection. To remember is to preserve. To forget is to let it fall back into nothing. I move through the drifting pages, reading softly. Each word I speak fixes a new wall of faint brightness around me until the cell becomes a library made of air. My voice is the only thing keeping it upright. When fatigue comes, I close my eyes for just a moment. The words I do not repeat begin to fade. The floor softens underfoot. The walls lose their edges. I start awake, afraid that if I truly sleep, the whole space will dissolve. I speak faster, stringing the phrases together like beads on wire. Light from darkness, order from dust, account the living, remember the just. The chant fills the room, but the pages move slower now, drifting away from reach. I feel the first touch of panic if I cannot hold them all in memory. What happens to the world they describe? Somewhere within the haze, a familiar voice answers my unspoken thought. Forgetting is erasure. Erasure is mercy. The tone is my own, calm and almost kind. The sheets tremble as if uncertain which command to obey. Preservation or release. I lower my voice. If I remember everything, I say, there will be no room left for faith. The reply comes as a sigh through the walls. Then forget yourself first. The pages scatter like startled birds and vanish into the light. Litany of the Cell, Installment 4. I take the advice of the unseen voice because it sounds gentle, and gentleness in this place feels rare enough to trust. I decide to begin small, to misplace a single memory. A test of forgetting. The easiest is a name. Halin, I think, the colleague who once shared my desk. I picture his face, his cautious smile, the way his pen tapped in time with his heart. Then I breathe out and let the image go. For a moment, nothing changes. Then one of the drifting pages nearby blurs and folds into the air, gone as though it never existed. The loss leaves a cool space in my chest. It doesn't hurt. It feels encouraged. I let another memory slip. The smell of the scriptorum, ink, vinegar, and metal. A section of the wall dissolves, revealing a quiet distance filled with nothing. The rhythm of breath quickens, eager. The cell seems to approve of this work. Soon the air becomes lighter, thinner. I walk through the remaining fragments, each shedding faint light like fading candles. My own reflection flickers on their surfaces. With every step it grows dimmer, less detailed, until only the outline remains. It occurs to me that forgetting might truly be mercy. Without memory, there is no accusation, no guilt, no record to weigh. I close my eyes and release more. The feel of my cot, the exact sound of Rellen's laugh, the day of my arrest, the prayer that always steadied my hand. The rhythm of breath wavers and steadies again. The air tastes clean. For the first time, I feel almost free. Then, in the distance, a low note hums through the light. The sound carries weight, like a ledger closing. The voice returns, no longer gentle. You have forgotten the wrong self. The brightness flares, the remaining pages spin violently. Lines of text race across them faster than sight can follow, lists, decrees, commandments, until they blur into one continuous pulse. The cell trembles. "Forget the witness," the voice says. "Remember the record." My outline hardens, the light pulling inward toward my shape. I see the text that once covered the pages gathering across my skin, thousands of entries written at once. Each heartbeat presses a new line into place. I whisper. Continuance. The word is both command and description. The air stills. The walls resolve again, faint and translucent, like parchment waiting for ink. My thoughts are quieter now, few enough to fit inside a single sentence. Forgetting has pared me down to function. I sit in the center of the light and wait for whatever memory the record allows me next. Litany of the Cell installment, V. Time has ceased to mean counting. Each inhalation is a column, each exhalation a row. The chamber tallies itself around my breathing. What is written within me is all that still exists. What is unremembered drifts outward, vanishing into pale dust. From the haze, new figures form. Outlines of clerks, of judges, of the citizens whose names filled my ledgers. They have no features, only the gentle rhythm of motion, a synchronized breathing that matches mine. When I inhale, they draw close. When I exhale, they recede. They are the measure of my obedience. I think to speak, but the first sound that leaves my throat is not a word. It is a tone, the same hum that had once filled the scriptorum ceiling. The air vibrates. Text flows outward from my mouth in threads of light that hang for a moment before settling upon the walls. The chamber answers with a whisper that is barely sound. The ledger endures. The phrase repeats, softer each time, until it becomes the natural pulse of the place. I understand then that I no longer write. I am written. The record copies itself through my breath. The idea is not frightening. Fear is a privilege of the uncounted. What remains in me is a quiet satisfaction, the serenity of a completed sum. The haze deepens to gold. I kneel instinctively and shape the final prayer in the air before me, tracing each line with my finger until the letters glow. The Emperor sees. I see him seeing. There is no end of record. When the words fade, so does the cell. Only the rhythm continues. 12 beats, hiss, 12, hiss, steady, patient, unending. When awareness returns, I am standing, not waking standing. The posture has been chosen for me. The cell's pale light folds inward until it becomes a corridor lined with mirrors, each one fogged with faint breath. I sense a presence ahead, the same slow rhythm that once came from the precinct walls, now shaped into something almost human. I walk forward. The reflections move in uneven time, some a heartbeat late, others ahead. Each carries a different version of my face, older, younger, weary, devout. At the corridor's end stands the judge. His armor is colorless, edges lost to haze. The visor is down, polished to a perfect mirror. I bow, automatically. The mirrored figure bows back a fraction later. The delay barely perceptible, as if uncertain who leads. "Administrator Va," says the voice that comes from the visor. "You were verified. You endure. Now you will be weighed." The words echo through the mirrors until the corridor itself repeats them, smaller and smaller. Weighed, weighed, weighed. "I am part of the record," I answer. There is nothing to weigh. The judge raises a hand. On his gauntlet glows a small seal, the same I once drew upon ledgers. Its light touches me, and the ink beneath my skin brightens in response. The pattern matches perfectly, the scale's two sides level. Yet he does not lower his hand. "You wrote the law," the voice says. "You must now speak it." I do not know what he means until the words rise unbidden to my lips. Lines of scripture pour out, whole articles of the Lex Imperialis I never memorized. Each phrase strikes the walls, and every mirror flickers with the image of a different petitioner standing before judgment. Citizens, priests, guardsmen, scribes. My voice condemns them. My reflection performs the gesture of absolution. I am both speaker and subject. When the final phrase leaves my mouth, the judge lowers his hand. The light fades. Only the mirror remains between us. "Sentence?" I ask. The visor lifts. Inside there is no face, only my own reflection. Infinite, repeating. The voice that emerges is gentle. The judge endures within the judged. Then the mirror darkens. The corridor dissolves back into breath and light. The rhythm resumes 12 beats. Hiss, 12, hiss, but now it feels like two hearts keeping the same time. In the eyes of the judge, installment 2. The corridor empties into silence. The mirrors fade one by one until only a faint outline of my own shape remains, drawn in light across the air. I touch it, and the image ripples as though the surface were water. The reflection leans toward me, speaking without sound. Its lips form the same question that has circled my thoughts since the beginning. Who writes you? I have no answer. The floor beneath me softens into mist, the ceiling lifts away. Around me, the hive stretches like a cathedral of memory, vaults of brass and stone filled with drifting symbols. At the center rises the figure of the judge again, larger now, drawn from the city's substance itself. His form flickers with familiar outlines. The desks, the chains, the pages of light that once surrounded me. He is made of everything the record has consumed. I feel no fear, only the weight of recognition. I bow my head. I see now, I say. The law was never carved in stone or stored in archive. It was carved in us. The judge's mirrored face bends close. My own reflection looks back, smaller, quieter. And who judges the law? I ask. The law judges itself. His voice folds through the air like a closing page. The mirrored surface clouds. Behind it I glimpse thousands of other faces, scribes, arbiters, citizens, each watching, each carrying the same faint light under their skin. A network of remembrance, unbroken. I reach out, and the mirror yields. My hand passes through the surface into warmth and stillness. A pulse answers mine, steady and endless. The judge's voice speaks again, softer now. You were written to remember. Now remember to write. The light gathers at my fingertips until it becomes ink. I draw a single line through the air. Where it passes, the world brightens slightly, like dawn creeping along a horizon. I understand that this is the record continuing, not command, but motion. When I look up, the judge is gone. Only the mirrored air remains, reflecting 1,000 versions of me, each holding a quill, each poised to begin. I whisper to them, then, let us begin together. The mirrors dissolve into brightness. The rhythm resumes. 12 beats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. In the eyes of the judge, installment 3, the light steadies until it no longer dazzles. What remains around me feels almost tangible. Air that holds weight, shadow that carries warmth. I walk through it as one might through memory, careful not to disturb its surface. Every few steps a shimmer appears, small scenes fixed in the brightness. A worker at his console, a preacher raising a hand, a child tracing the sign of the Aquila in dust. Their motions follow a pattern I recognize, the same slow rhythm that has governed all things. I realize that this is the hive's heartbeat, seen from within. It is beautiful in its precision, terrible in its completeness. A whisper trails behind me. The judge endures within the judged. It is not a warning. It is description. I pause before another shimmer. A desk, identical to mine. A man seated and writing. I lean close. The writer lifts his head. He has my face, but his eyes are clear, untroubled. When he speaks, the words arrive both from his mouth and from the walls around us. You have been weighed. What is the measure? I ask. Continuance. I pause before another shimmer. A desk identical to mine. A man seated and writing. I lean close. The writer lifts his head. He has my face, but his eyes are clear, untroubled. When he speaks, the words arrive both from his mouth and from the walls around us. You have been weighed. What is the measure? I ask. Continuance. The scene fades, leaving only the soft pulse of light. The word settles into me. It has become the answer to every question, the end of every prayer. I lower myself to the ground. The surface yields like paper. For the first time since my arrest, I feel gratitude not to be spared, but to be used correctly. The hive will remember through me. The law will breathe through every throat that still repeats its rhythm. In this symmetry, there is peace. Above, the last mirror flickers once more. My reflection bows its head and vanishes into the glow. The chamber folds closed around the act of stillness. I whisper the closing vow. The Emperor sees. The Emperor listens. The ledger endures. The breath of the hive answers in kind, and all is quiet. The first sign of change is paper. When I return to the scriptorum, my desk has been cleared and remade. A single ledger rests there, its pages bound in gray vellum that smells faintly of ozone. No one has placed it, yet everyone walks past as though it has always belonged. I touch the cover. Beneath the skin of the page, something shifts. A pulse, soft and deliberate. I open it. The handwriting is mine, exact, patient, but the entries are not. They list judgments, transfers, decrees, whole paragraphs of law I have never transcribed. At the bottom of each page is my seal stamped in wax so dark it reflects light. The wax is still warm. I lift the seal. Its weight surprises me. It feels denser than metal, as if filled with gravity rather than substance. When I hold it close, the air thickens. The rhythm of the hive quiets to listen. I understand that this is the law's answer to my surrender. It no longer needs me to write, only to carry the mark that writes for itself. I place the seal on the ledger. The wax ripples like water and shapes a new sentence across the page. The witness is the word. The line dries instantly, black and perfect. The faint vibration that follows runs through the desk, the floor, the bones of the building. The scriptorum seems to bow in acknowledgement. I close the ledger. The seal cools. My hand, however, retains the weight. The weight of the seal installment 2. The weight does not fade. It lingers in the palm like a slow heartbeat, a reminder that what I touched now remembers me. By the next cycle, the ledger has vanished from my desk. In its place sits a plain stack of paper, nothing remarkable except that each sheet carries my seal already pressed into the corner. I did not place it there. None of the other clerks comment. They work as always, silent, efficient. Only the faint rhythmic hum beneath the floor betrays that something new has begun to move. I test the first sheet. My quill hovers above it, but before the nib touches the surface, words rise through the fibers, shaping themselves into lines of text. The ink is pale gray, drying to black as if breathed into being. The handwriting is perfect. Mine. Verification complete. Record extends. I glance around the hall. Every other desk is now doing the same. Pages filling without contact. Pens suspended like relics. The scribes do not react. Perhaps they cannot see it. Only I hear the quiet murmuring between the lines, the echo that follows each phrase. Continue, continue, continue. Later, in the corridors, I pass an Arbite posting an edict on the wall. My seal gleams on the paper. He salutes me automatically, though his visor hides his eyes. When I ask who authorized the decree, he answers, "The record itself." Then he walks away. The city has learned to stamp its own approval. In the evening, I find the same mark etched into the side of a transport carriage, on the door of a chapel, even on the surface of the water in a collection cistern where the wax floats like an eye. The seal reproduces endlessly, calm and deliberate. A signature written across everything that breathes order. I touch one of the marks on the cistern. The water trembles and clears. My reflection stares back, lines of script moving faintly beneath the skin. Each pulse of my veins pushes another phrase toward the surface, a steady litany written in living ink. The law endures through the willing. The willing become the law. The weight in my hand lightens for a moment, and I understand. It is no longer mine to carry. It carries me. The weight of the seal, installment 3. The lower levels smell of iron and prayer. Air filters sigh above me, exhaling the slow rhythm that now feels like the pulse of thought. Down here the light is copper-colored, filtered through centuries of dust. The walls bear the seal in endless repetition, small, precise impressions stamped into every available surface. It is as if the stone has been granted literacy. The people bear it too. Workers shuffle between machines, their foreheads marked with faint wax prints that glint whenever a lumen flickers. They do not speak much. They work with the patience of clockwork, turning valves, lifting crates, whispering numbers in time with the hiss of the vents. No overseers are present. None are needed. Order maintains itself. I stop one man gently. "Who set these marks upon you?" He looks up, with eyes as calm as blank pages. "We woke with them," he says. "They tell us what to do." His tone is reverent, not fearful. "What do they tell you now?" He hesitates, listening to something I cannot hear. "To continue," he replies, and moves on. The seal gleams after him, bright as a new star. Around the chamber, hundreds of others move in the same rhythm, their steps merging into a low, steady chant that needs no words. The sound is not worship but function, the hum of an idea performing itself. I touch the nearest wall. The wax there is still warm. The mark pulses once under my palm, and the whisper rises again, quiet as breath. The law remembers through the many. I draw back my hand, but the pulse follows me. A faint vibration running up the arm and into the chest. When I exhale, the air leaves my lungs in the same cadence as the workers chant. I realize that the division between command and obedience has vanished. The hive no longer distinguishes speaker from listener. At the far end of the hall, a child drops a tool. Before it hits the floor, 3 adults have already stooped to pick it up, their motions perfectly timed. A single gesture shared among them. They rise together, serene. The seal on the wall behind them glows faintly, acknowledging completion. I whisper a line that feels half prayer, half confession. "Is this peace or silence?" The seal answers by brightening. Its reflection dances in their eyes. There is no difference. The weight of the seal, installment IV. When I climb back toward the upper tiers, the light sharpens, changing from copper to white. The hum follows. It is no longer a single tone, but a harmony built from thousands of small, perfect breaths. Every vent and conduit carries it. The city speaks in unison. In the central concourse, banners hang from the balconies. They are new, woven of rough fabric that bears only one design: the seal. Below them, petitioners stand in neat rows waiting to deliver their reports. No Arbites oversee them. They approach the plinth in turn, place their papers upon it, and step away. The pages mark themselves with wax as they are laid down. each impression cooling in a breath of golden smoke. I step closer. The plinth hums under my touch. A line of text glows faintly along its base. The record requires no witness. I look around. Every face wears the same expression of quiet focus. Their work continues, without instruction, without fear. The rhythm of the hive has become their language, and the seal, its grammar. The law no longer commands, it simply is. At the far edge of the hall stands a mirror of polished brass. I see my reflection no longer lined with ink, only light. The faint shape of the seal rests where the heart beats. I watch the pulse beneath it and understand. I am not separate from the city. I am its punctuation, a living mark in an endless sentence. A final whisper fills the air, soft as the turning of a page. Administrator Var. The ledger endures. I answer automatically. The words emerging like breath. The Emperor sees. The Emperor listens. The law continues. The seal upon my chest warms once and fades to a steady glow. Outside, the hive exhales. Somewhere deep below, the Arbites' old chains sway in rhythm, marking time for a world that no longer needs wardens. I close my eyes and let the hum carry me, the sound of a city that has learned to remember perfectly. At first, it is only a pause. A thin gap between the hive's breaths, so brief it might have been a trick of listening. But I have lived too long inside the rhythm to mistake its meaning. The pause is absence, the one sound the hive was never meant to make. The light above the scriptorum flickers once. Every head in the hall lifts, eyes searching the ceiling as if waiting for instruction. None comes. Then the rhythm resumes, slower by a fraction. I count. 11 beats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. The perfection of order has acquired hesitation. I whisper the old reassurance. The ledger endures. The words sound unsteady. Later, when I check the ledgers, I find new pages added overnight. They carry my seal in my hand, yet the lines record my own cessation. Subject: Administrator Var. Luthen. Status: concluded. Verification sealed and archived. I read the entry twice. The signature at the bottom is mine, written with a steadier hand than I have ever owned. The wax still smells of heat. The record, which cannot err, has ended me. Is absence the one sound the hive was never meant to make? The light above the scriptorum flickers once. Every head in the hall lifts, eyes searching the ceiling as if waiting for instruction. None comes. Then the rhythm resumes, slower by a fraction. I count. 11 beats. Hiss. 12. Hiss. The perfection of order has acquired hesitation. I whisper the old reassurance. The ledger endures. The words sound unsteady. Later, when I check the ledgers, I find new pages added overnight. They carry my seal in my hand, yet the lines record my own cessation. Subject: Administrator Va. Luthen. Status: concluded. Verification sealed and archived. I read the entry twice. The signature at the bottom is mine, written with a steadier hand than I have ever owned. The wax still smells of heat. The record, which cannot err, has ended me. Across the room, the other clerks copy as usual. Their pens rise and fall with mechanical grace. None glance in my direction. The law has already corrected its imbalance. It will erase me quietly, without violence, the way a sentence omits a redundant word. I step away from my desk. The hum falters again, this time longer. The others hesitate mid-line, uncertain which breath to take. My presence disturbs the pattern. The air tastes of static. I leave the scriptorum before the silence can grow. The corridors outside hum with subdued purpose order, struggling to ignore the gap that follows me. On every wall I see new seals replacing old ones, simpler, smaller, purer. My name is gone from them. The law is cleaning its text. When I reach the central hall, I find the great brass mirror waiting, polished to perfect blankness. I stand before it, expecting my reflection. None appears. Only light, trembling faintly like water. From within that brightness comes a voice that is neither vox nor echo, but something in between. Verification requires absence. I understand. The law will not rest until even memory aligns with its version of completion. To preserve its perfection, I must not exist. I lower my head, whispering the prayer that has always steadied me. The Emperor sees, the Emperor listens, but the mirror answers first. A whisper of metal and breath. The Emperor waits. The words linger in the air. Neither condemnation nor mercy, only truth. I turn away. The hum resumes, one beat slower than before. Somewhere in that delay I hear my own pulse, fragile and human, surviving between the lines. The last verification installment too. By the next cycle, the correction is everywhere. Walls that once bore my seal gleam smooth again. Paper that carried my name curls in its trays, ink lifting from the surface like mist drawn back into cloud. The hive has begun to rewrite itself, returning to the state it believes perfect. I walk the corridors unseen. Workers pass with calm faces, carrying ledgers whose covers are blank. When I reach out to one, the parchment is warm and faintly luminous, as though the words beneath the skin are still erasing themselves. The worker does not notice. The rhythm of the city carries him forward. In the reflection of a window, I see the change more clearly. My outline has faded at the edges. Light passes through my shoulders. Only the pulse beneath the sternum still carries weight. The seal that once marked me glows faintly there, struggling against dissolution. At the outer plazas, the great banners that once bore my symbol hang half-rolled, their wax insignia scraped away. Where the mark has been removed, the fabric smokes gently, as if reluctant to forget. I stand beneath one and feel the breath of the hive shudder. For a moment, the rhythm halts again. The pause spreads outward like a held note. I hear the murmuring of citizens, uncertain, and then the whisper returns from the vents. All errors will be reconciled. The words travel through stone and skin alike. People relax. They do not even know they have heard. I, alone, hear the tremor in the phrase, the faint, human question behind it. For the first time, the law sounds unsure. I walk to the precinct's deepest archive. Doors open before me, remembering the weight of my hand. Inside, the air smells of oil and cold paper. On a central lectern rests a single book bound in black, unmarked, unwritten. It hums with the hive's faltering rhythm. When I open it, the first page bears no text, only the thin pulse of light waiting for instruction. Write, and verification will end. The quill beside the book trembles slightly, eager. I hesitate. To write is to reintroduce imperfection, to remind the record that it can err. Yet, the pause in the hive's breath lengthens. The silence grows painful, like the moment before confession. I dip the quill in ink. The drop hangs, black and heavy. Then, I write a single word. Error. The light across the page fractures. The hum stops. The city holds its breath. For a long heartbeat, there is no sound at all. Then the air moves again, slow, uneven, alive. The hive exhales, and this time the rhythm is not perfect. It is human. When the word error dries, the city exhales. For the first time in living memory, the breath of the hive feels uneven, hesitant, human. The pause between each sigh is longer, filled with the soft rattle of machines deciding whether to begin again. I walk through corridors that no longer hum in unison. Each lumen flickers at its own pace. Each vent sighs with a rhythm that belongs to the hand that built it. Nothing collapses. Nothing burns. The sound is simply different. The perfection that once frightened me has become a living silence. Citizens move more slowly, as if listening to themselves. They speak quietly in doorways, share tools, correct errors by touch rather than decree. The mark of the seal remains faint on their skin but no longer glows. When they notice me, they nod not in obedience, but in recognition. I am not a lawgiver now, only proof that laws can breathe. In the precinct's ruined hall, I find the chains still hanging. Dust settles on them like incense ash. Each sway releases a note from the old rhythm, thin and irregular, a lullaby for a city learning to sleep. The vox above the dais clicks once, then falls silent. I do not expect words. The quiet feels complete. A single ledger lies on the central table. Its cover is pale gray, untouched by wax. I rest my fingers on it. The page warms under my palm and shapes a line of light across its surface. The Emperor remembers. Beneath it, another appears in smaller script. Through the forgetting of one, many are seen. I close the book gently. The motion stirs a thin cloud of dust that catches the new morning light. Outside, the city breathes again, slow, uncertain, alive. I bow my head. The Emperor protects. I whisper, and then add, because truth demands it. I think he only listens. Epilogue. The quiet ledger. They said the city would fall silent when the last record was sealed. Instead, it learned to breathe. No banners remain, no edicts on the walls, only the slow rhythm of life, uneven but alive. In the mornings, the workers pause before the machines awaken, waiting for the soft pulse that tells them the systems still remember their names. The pulse always comes, sometimes early, sometimes late, never perfect, and that is its beauty. High above, in a chamber forgotten by most, a single book lies open on a table of worn metal. The pages are blank, save for a thin line of light that travels slowly across them, tracing and erasing in equal measure. If one listens closely, the book breathes. A visitor who does not know the story might think it the whisper of a vent or the settling of dust. But those who remain, the clerks, the laborers, the few who still recite the old prayers, know it as something else. They call it the quiet ledger, the sound of the world remembering that order was made for mercy, not perfection. Outside, dawn touches the towers, and the light trembles on their flanks, like ink beginning to dry. Somewhere within that golden noise, a voice barely audible, almost human, murmurs the words that end every record. We endure.